This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia. Join me for my new radio show, A Tip from Gilbert. Talk inspiration and prayer every Monday from 11 to 11:45 a.m. on KWWJ 1360 a.m., 96.9 FM, or KYOK 1140 a.m. Call me 832-570-8075. See you then. Houston, this is Gilbert Garcia, Talk Inspiration and Prayer. Let's listen to a little bit of this song, Mr. Producer, primarily because it just is an extraordinary song, the words, about self-awareness and searching for who you are. And I think what he's really trying to say is he's searching for inspiration. He's searching for God in his life. That's what I really think it means. The other reason is because my guest, Bishop Dixon, is going to be here in 1 second. But let's listen to these words because this is from the great group called Chicago. And he's going to say here, as my life goes on, I believe somehow something's changed. Something deep inside, a part of me. There's a strange new light in my eyes, things I've never known, changing my life, changing me. I've been searching so long to find an answer. Now I know my life has meaning. Now I see myself as I am, feeling very free. Life is everything it's meant to be. Extraordinary song, just an extraordinary song. And let's go ahead and listen to just a little bit of that, producer. And as we continue, I want to give a shout out to Representative Christina Morales. And you go ahead and phase it out there on the song, and we'll get it here at the end. I want to give a shout out to Representative Christina Morales and all her crew, Conchita, everybody who do so much because they do incredible things for the community. And we had an extraordinary event at Moody Park this past weekend because, we got together. It was Representative Morales' idea, and she said, we've got to do something for the young people. And the young people are all there. We had all the high schools represented. We had Reagan, Milby, Austin. They were all there. Isaguirre. We had over 1,000 young people and then their parents and everybody. And it was a beautiful thing because we had HCC there, we had Texas A&M there, we had all the trade groups there, the various unions, we had LULAC, we had all these resources for the young people to be able to really turn to and talk to someone. Because there are good people out there, good kids out there, they just need a little hand up. They just need someone to just, show them a way, inspire them, just like what someone did for me, a hand up. And that's what they need. And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about a gentleman named Joe Angel in a minute because he really struck me. We have our guest here now, Bishop Dixon. Bishop, you're going to now talking to KYOK, KWWJ, all the AM, FM affiliates of all those. You're on Facebook, Spotify. I can't even keep up with it all, but it's just a bunch.
Wow.
And you know what? We're so excited that you're here. Because, let's face it, Bishop, what's it like every day waking up saying, you know what, I'm the bishop? Bishop, really, because, you mean so much to so many people.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm humbled beyond words to be here with you, to be your guest. And your passion and enthusiasm inspires all of us. And anybody who listens to you has to get inspired, right?
And
so I appreciate that. But no, thank you for having me on your show. Really, I honestly wake up every day thinking, man, God is this good to me. The fact that the Lord has blessed me to be a blessing to anybody is humbling because. And people who know me know I say this all the time, it's grace and mercy, right? And the fact we get to serve others is really a privilege for us more than it is for the people who we get to serve.
Well, let me ask you something. You come from a long line of pastors and community leaders. Is it just, would you say, in your DNA? Or was there a moment in your life that God touched you and said, you're going to follow the footsteps of and carry the word? How did you become here, Bishop Dixon?
Well, let me tell you, it's a combination of both. As you mentioned, I'm blessed to come from a family of generational servants, pastors and leaders. church founders in my family's background. My father's father pastored our church for 50 years.
No kidding.
50 years.
Wow.
And he lived in the Heights on Rutland Street, 620 Rutland Street. And when I was a child, my father's father, our pastor, was also the janitor at Heights State Bank.
Isn't that
right?
amazing?
Right. So he worked during the day as the janitor at the bank, and at night he'd be teaching Bible study, And so I lived amongst people who gave, who served. That was my model. But I was in the 4th grade the day I had a personal epiphany. I was reading a book that talked about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I got stuck, Gilbert, on the chapter of his assassination. Mm-hmm. And I never shall forget it. I was in Helms Elementary School on West 21st Street off of Shepherd, and in Miss Gloria Paul's classroom. And I was reading this page on Dr. King being shot. And in my little 4th grade mind, I could not understand why such a good man was shot and killed for doing good. Mm-hmm. That just did not make sense to me. But I can only relate to it based on my Sunday school lessons about Jesus, right? Because the only other person I knew who got killed for doing good at that time was Jesus Christ. So I could see that. And I got so convicted, I began to cry and weep in that classroom.
Very interesting.
And I said to God, in my little 4th grade mind and brain, I don't understand why this happened to such good people like Dr. King and Jesus, but if you ever need somebody to die for doing good again, I would do it.
What a beautiful story.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I feel it from you. I feel it from you. What that means is we've already got callers for you. Go ahead. What do we have? Do we have an Edna? Is there an Edna on the line?
Yes, it is.
Edna, you got me, Gilbert Garcia, with Bishop Dixon. Talk inspiration and prayer. What you got for us today?
Hi, Bishop Dixon. He knows me.
How you doing, Edna?
Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm doing amazing.
And it was so funny to call in to have you on the line, and we're talking about Acres Homes as well.
Yes, of course, absolutely. The 4-4.
So this is too good. I was telling them, Bishop, I don't know if you've had a chance to go over to Carver High School and see the robotics group that they have over there. Dr. Pryor is the one that's leading that. They just won. They won championship for international robotics out at the George R. Brown. And I was a little concerned because I felt like that they should have got a lot more publicity than they did, considering, these are our kids that come from the low income area and doing such an outstanding job. And they should be rewarded and really be talked about what they're doing. Because with this program, Dr. Pryor was actually at A-Leaf High School is where it started, and then he went from there to Spring Branch. But when I met him, I told him, I said, wow, this program you're doing, I said, you come in Acres Home with this, and we're going to blow Acres Home off the map with this program. And when I tell you he's doing it, and we need to really highlight and let them know. And a lot of times they need help. A lot of the material and stuff that they're trying to piece together and put together and do things, it should not be happening. And we can, I'm telling you, this can be we can turn our kids around in our neighborhood if we get them involved in this. It's going to be an awesome program.
Well, Edna, let me tell you something, but I don't want to cut off the bishop here. Bishop, go ahead. You were going to say something to her?
No, I was going to say thank you for being a hero and a champion for our youth and for our community. And reach out to me after we get off the show and let me know how I can help, because I'd love to help promote that program.
Wonderful. And what I was going to say, very similar, which is, that's the purpose of this show, Bishop. There are so many good things happen in our community all the time, and we don't hear about it.
Right.
The media is fixated on nothing but negative, and violence here, violence there. And you know what? Someone's got to say enough.
Yes.
Enough. And that's the purpose of this. I would love, and you can hopefully get my number and everything, 713-443-4330. I'd like to have Dr. Pryor on my show, because what a beautiful thing. It reminds me of that movie, Stand and Deliver. the math teacher Escalante, who took these kids that everyone thought wouldn't have a chance and nobody would.
Right.
And he taught them calculus. I'll never forget the famous line when he was writing calculus on the board, and Lou Diamond Phillips, the actor, says, "What's calculus?" And it was so funny. But Miss Edna, if you would do that, I'd love to have Dr. Pryor on the phone because we.
Oh yeah, that's it. Well, I tried to get him today, but of course he's a teacher, so he's at school.
Well, tell him I
So,
want him on my show because we need him to come here to talk about kids. Some kids are gifted athletes. Some kids are gifted in the mind. At the end of the day, we need to help them find their gift and bring the best out of them.
Right.
So, Miss Edna, thank you for calling. Please.
Yes, I'll get with you, Bishop. I'll get with you, and we can talk more about it.
Please do. I'll have him at the church and interview him in the whole 9 yards and put him on our show as well. So thank you for letting us know about that.
Thank you, Miss Edna. Let me come back to you, Bishop, which is, in these times, and I'm a man of faith, and I'm a Catholic. It's so hard to maintain your faith somehow when you see what's going on in Ukraine, and you do see all these horrible things. How do you keep it up? How do you keep inspiring people and keep going through all this? Because I've seen you preach, I've seen you give prayers at events, and it's so extraordinary. What do you tell someone like me, just a citizen, just a weak man? How do you tell me just keep having faith through all this, that there is a plan?
Well, man, it's amazing that you asked that question with those words. My message yesterday.
Come on.
That people can go on my Facebook page and get on my YouTube, Bishop James Dixon or James Dixon Empowers. The title of the message was "A Victorious Faith in Challenging Places." I just preached that yesterday, and I can't preach the whole sermon right now, but it goes back to a time when the children of Israel, the Jews, were in Babylonian captivity for 70 years. And they thought it was going to be 2 years because one preacher told them it's going to be short. And then Jeremiah came back and said, no, God says it's not 2 years, it's 70 years. But in the meantime, build houses, build your families, grow gardens, prosper and increase so that you don't diminish. And so what God says to them is, your amazing is best revealed in adversity. And so often we're waiting for all the problems to go away. No wars, no rumors of wars, no violence, no crime, no economic downturns. We're looking for that utopia. It doesn't happen, all right? The world is going to be filled with turmoil and trouble. We will always have some kind of difficulty, always a disaster, always some kind of storm, always. So we've got to make up our minds. Our faith is best employed when we are facing adverse conditions. And the amazing that we get to see inspires us to believe again. And Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans that I have for you."
Very interesting.
Yes.
What a wonderful sermon that must be.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube. Say it again to our listeners out there.
Sure. Go on James Dixon Empowers or Bishop James Dixon on YouTube or on Facebook or the Community Faith on Facebook, and you can get the message downloaded. The link is there. Or go to our app. In fact, you can download our app, the KCOH Church. Download our app, and the message is on
You have
the
an
app as well.
app? How incredible.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the app in a second. Let's go we have a Miss Stacy. Miss Stacy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Miss Stacy, how are you? You have me, Gilbert Garcia, Talk Inspiration and Prayer with Bishop Dixon. Talk to us.
Awesome. So I just wanted to let all of your listeners know that I am excited about my campaign for State Board of Education. I was able to meet Mr. Garcia at a seniors breakfast in the northeast side of Houston about a month ago, and I have been excited and meeting with voters ever since. Our runoff election is on May 24th, and the early voting starts on May 16th. So I'm just asking if you all would just send your prayers and your well wishes my way. I would be greatly appreciative of that.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you called in, and I encourage everyone to call. Bishop, I try to think of this station, this 45 minutes as the people's 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And this is the time. Go through one more time. I'm happy to just, please repeat. Where's your website? And most importantly, tell people all those voting dates. And ladies and gentlemen, you got to vote.
Yes.
You got to, Bishop, right? I mean, you got to vote.
You got to vote. It's a sacred right and a sacred responsibility.
There you go. Because, my mom always said, if you don't vote, don't complain.
That's
but
right.
at the end of the day, you got to vote because that's the only way we're going to make change in our communities. And our communities have been left out for so long. It's time, Bishop. It's time. Tell us those dates one more time.
That's right. So the early voting starts from May 16th through May 20th. That's a Monday through Friday. And the actual election day is on May 24th.
Wonderful.
And you can find my website, Stacy, STACI for Texas.com, Stacy Childs.
Stacy, thank you much for calling in, and we wish you very, very well in your election. So please let us know. Call in again. Let us know how it's all going.
I will.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you, madam. Let me ask you this: how did you hold up during COVID? How was the church, the group, the family? How was everybody?
We're tremendously blessed. All of us had our challenges, of course, and our families.
Were you ever down?
I was never down.
Okay, amen.
But I had family members who were down. My father and my mother, fought it off. God blessed them to come through it.
Amen.
We had funerals though, right? And the funerals of members, the funerals of loved ones. A very, very trying time. Every pastor will tell you the last 2 years have been a real faith walk. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a big difference in preaching to empty seats and hoping somebody listens. Church is about, as you know, connectivity. It's about koinonia, fellowship. And people watching a service on social media is nothing close to being in close proximity, feeling each other's energy, the power of each other's prayers. And so it's been a real challenging time, but God is faithful, and I thank God for the faithful people of the community of faith.
And maybe it goes back to what you said. It brings out the best in you during these adverse times. And boy, COVID was just, come on, COVID. Who would have known COVID? Amen to your parents. So they're through it. They're fine.
Yes.
I want to talk about the community in a moment, but I know we have another caller. Is there a Miss Gina on the line? You've got Gilbert Garcia, Talk Inspiration and Prayer with Bishop James Dixon.
Hi, Mr. Garcia, Dr. Dixon. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Good morning.
Dr. Dixon, I remember last year seeing you on, I believe you were on Kimbrell Marshall's show with him, and you had talked about the NAACP and some young men you had come in contact with that was unaware of the organization.
Yes.
And so I was curious to see how that's changed over the years, if you were able to, bring the young people into the organization.
Well, first of all, thank you for the call, the question, and thank you for remembering that conversation. Very powerful conversation because it impacted my life greatly. And Gilbert, what you're speaking of is I encountered some young teenage guys, out in the hood, right? And when I don't ever walk up and say, I'm Dr. James Dixon, or I'm Pastor James Dixon, I'm Bishop James Dixon. I just get to know people as I'm a guy, right? And I was talking to these young guys and asking what's going on in their lives. They were not going to school, and how could I help you? What you need? And when I mentioned them, I said, have you ever heard of the NAACP? And they had not.
Interesting.
Had not heard of the NAACP. And it startled me that in 2022, these teenage guys, 15, 16 years old, had never heard of the NAACP.
And they don't realize they're the beneficiaries of 50, 100 years of work of the NAACP to give them just the ability to walk freely.
But that tells you the disconnect that we can have while we are in our, doing our thing, right? Trying to make our difference. Often we're not communicating all the way down line. And so it really convicted me. So to her question, yes, we've been doing more reaching out to youth and getting more youth engaged and involved and in conversation. So I'm out in the community promoting this among kids all the time, and we've got a robust our youth division at the NAACP is more aggressive and innovative, and so more and more kids are saying, "Let me join, let me be a part." And schools now are wanting to join.
Oh, how great!
So yes, so we've got to be better at that. But thank you for breaking that question up and encouraging us to continue, because again, if we don't reach our children, we can't change our future.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. Thank you for the call. We really appreciate it. Let me just say this. For parents that are listening, you know what? Encourage your kids to join. Parents, get your kids involved. Talk about it at the dinner table. Talk about the things that are going on in the world, because that's, again, how we're going to get our young people involved and engaged, and that's what we need in this community. Let's go back. Who do we have now? We have a Miss Andrea. If I said that incorrectly, I apologize. Andrea, you got Gilbert Garcia, Talk Inspiration and Prayer with my good friend Bishop Dixon.
Hi, Gilbert. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. This is Andrea Bell. I was just calling for my weekly reminder to everyone to get out to vote for the runoffs that are coming up May 16th to 20th, and then Election Day on May 24th.
Andrea, tell us, how's the race going for you?
It's going really well. We had a fundraiser last week, and it was very successful. So
Remind us, you're running for what? You're running for judge, right? In what court and everything, and what type of court?
It's judge of the 185th District Court, which is one of the felony courts here in Harris County.
And explain to our listeners, what does that mean, felony court?
So this court would exclusively handle felony cases, and a felony is any crime that can be punishable by over a year in custody.
And so that's like, for lack of a better word, the more serious things. Is that
Absolutely.
a fair? Well,
Yes.
Let me ask you this. I know you a little bit. I'm so glad that you're running because you know what, Bishop, it just seems we need more judges who understand people, understand young people, and and remember that they were once young, and to just to have some sort of spirituality when you're going through these things and you sentence them and so forth, because any little mark on their lives will change their whole life.
Yes.
And we got to be thoughtful about that. And these things that are, I guess, is there such a thing, Andrea, as the misdemeanor court?
Yes, there is a misdemeanor court, and we see a lot of young people in that as well. But as you were saying, Gilbert, we have so many young people who go before a felony court, and our largest recidivist group in the state are these 17 to 25-year-olds. And so part of my platform is to create a program in the 185th for these young people who are on adult probation in felony court, to give them a more individualized path to rehabilitation that's age appropriate and community based.
Well, I could speak because, Bishop, I may not have told you this. I had a brother who went down the wrong path and paid his debt to society. And it's been hard for him to get back into society. And so it's kind of like if you just lock them up and you don't have a way to get them integrated back, you got to give them hope somehow. And you got to train them to become, because when you're gone a long time,
Yes.
I mean, you miss time.
Yes.
Bishop, what do you see out there when you talk about that?
Well, let me tell you, I encounter this all the time, right? All the time. And we've been preaching it and teaching it and speaking it to people in policymaking positions. Judges and law enforcement people have to understand that either we're going to participate in people's rebuild, or we're going to continue to repeat. And so often we don't understand that. But here's a phrase that I use, and that is, we've got to have compassionate correction.
There you go.
And so often we try to have correction without compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And a correction without compassion is going to only produce more of a crisis. We've got to be a strong enough society to where we believe in another chance, and we believe in the value that people have. And if you invest in that value, then that value can produce dividends that are positive for the entire community. But let me say this deeper. I wrote a book years ago, and one of my chapters dealt with this piece on over-incarceration. Over $10 billion are generated every year for for-profit prisons in America, right? For companies in America. For-profit corporations are making money on the labor, free prison labor of prisoners. I mean, Fortune 500 companies. But when those same individuals are released from prison, they can't apply for a job in those same companies.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, it makes no sense, Bishop.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
I can work for you while I'm in jail, while I'm in prison for years. But once I'm out of prison, I can't use the same skills that I used to make profits for you while I was in prison. I can't do it when I'm out. That's slavery.
I mean, it seems to me, Bishop, that I don't know, maybe I'm just a citizen, but it seems if you're going to take them when they're prisoners, you should be forced to take them when they're out.
Absolutely.
In other words, if you should, if you're going to be, I don't want to say beneficiary, but if you're going to use and exploit them, then when they're out, you should train them and employ them.
Absolutely. They should come out with a certificate that while I was in prison,
there you go,
I did work for this company, this corporation, this company, this corporation. So when I come out now, I come to apply for a job in that corporation to say, this is what I did for you while I was there. I mean, That's why Michelle Alexander's book is very important, The New Jim Crow. People need to read that book because this is all by design, which means that now it's advantageous to lock more and more people up because they make more money for more and more corporations.
And I want to talk about that. Andrea, I'm going to give you the last word for you here. Tell us again where to vote and everything in your website.
Yes, just for a second.
Okay, go ahead, Andrea. That's fine. Tell us your website. I'm going to give you the last word. Where's your website?
It's Andrea, BEALL for judge.com. And election day is on May 24th.
Andrew, thank you for calling in, and really, I really mean it. Thank you for calling in and reaching out to Houston. That's how we're going to do this together. So I know we have another caller. We're going to move on. Andrea, thank you so very, very much. We wish you very well. Melinda, are you on the line? You're very welcome. You got me at Talk Inspiration and Prayer. Is there a Melinda on the line?
Yes, this is Melinda. I had a question for Dr. Dixon.
Please.
You mentioned the pandemic earlier, and one thing that was recognized was the economic and health disparities. Have you seen any type of positive change since the reopening?
Well, let me say this thing, and that's a very insightful question. We did learn that the pandemic revealed great disparities in terms of access to health care, right? And that's been talked about across the nation. We have not yet remedied that. We've got to now re-engage the conversation post-pandemic. How do we now reach back to make sure everyone in America has access to quality health care, Gilbert? This is a fundamental human right.
That's right. And
health care should not be the right of the privileged. It should be the right of every human being, especially in the richest nation in the world. And we keep passing budgets that increase spending in other areas, but we're leaving poor people and the underserved out of the healthcare equation. By the way, we're working also right now on an issue where Medicaid funding, Medicaid supplemental pay, Gilbert, was cut. In August 2021, Medicaid supplemental payment was cut, and to the tune of some $5 billion a year from Texas alone. We've been fighting that. A federal judge just ruled in our favor, and it's been extended out for 1 year. But now we need a multi-year agreement because that affects poor people. Over 60% of Hispanic babies and African-American babies are born in hospitals where they depend on Medicaid supplemental pay.
Well, I'm going to...
It's amazing.
Yeah, I have something for you, but real quick, to our caller, anything else you want to ask Mr. Bishop Dixon? Because I want to follow up with him on this whole concept of wealth inequality.
Yes. Has he seen any corporate companies reinvest in the community?
Amen to that. So we thank you for calling in. Bishop, what do you think?
Well, let me tell you, there are some companies that are doing some things, and I don't want to obscure that, but not nearly enough. Not nearly enough. We have wealthy corporations that could be doing a lot more. When I drive through neighborhoods and I see dilapidated school buildings, I see dilapidated housing, I see neighborhoods where there's no quality recreational youth development programs. Little league kids are on a corner with their helmets begging for money for uniforms. In a city like Houston, Texas, and other cities across the nation, our corporations could do a better job.
Well, I will tell you what gets me, Bishop, is, you mentioned a number. I thought you said $5 billion for Medicaid. Yeah. There are people in this country that are worth $100 billion.
Yes.
Can you imagine that? What they could do to, come on, you can't take it with you, Bishop.
No.
Right? And so why not use your money for good? And even $1 billion is so much. What about the other $99 billion? It just sometimes is unfathomable to me, the wealth inequality that exists in this country today.
Well, I could talk about that and get in trouble because I have a...
Tell us.
Let me just put this out there.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, what does any one person need with $100 billion?
Right.
Like how does that happen?
That's a country.
That's a country, right? And so there's something defective in our system. I believe in free enterprise. So I'm not talking about communism here. But my point is, I think we need to have some deeper conversation and discussion. Because if there are 10 pieces of a pie and there are 20 people or 10 people, if any one of those people has 5 slices, somebody's going to starve.
That's right.
And so if you start with that basic premise, we know that wealth inequality is something we cannot overcome as long as one person is able to have 5 pieces of the pie when there are 20 people who need to eat.
That's right. And the wealth inequality really is the root of unequal access to healthcare, unequal access to it's everything. Education, it's healthcare, it's everything, and then becomes the unequal access to proper legal representation. So what happens? All our warriors are locked up.
Absolutely,
they're all our warriors.
All our warriors. And Gilbert, we got to say this as well, that we can't depend on human compassion with people who have all the wealth. We wish, right, that everybody who has $50 billion or whatever were just generous people, compassionate about, but we know that that's not the case.
That's right.
True. So we've got to think about what type of adjustments need to be made to our system of economy that makes sure that everyone at least has a quality lifestyle opportunity. Roof over my head, food to eat, access to education, healthcare, and the very necessities of life.
And everyone should have the same opportunity to attain that $100 billion. Everyone needs to have the same chance. I know we have another caller. Well, was there a caller? Is there a Miss Maria on the phone?
Yes, Gilbert, how you doing?
Miss Maria, I'm doing quite well. You have me, Gilbert Garcia, Talk Inspiration and Prayer, of course, with Bishop Dixon, who's really one of the heroes in Houston, actually in America, for all the great work that he and his family have done for generations. Talk to us, Maria.
Well, I'm just listening, and I always thank you so much for enlightening us, and thank you so much for that information. And yes, the importance of, to help the youth, to educate them, to enlighten them. I had the great opportunity 22 years ago to be enrolled in a school, and the thing is, it was an outreach center. I got divorced. I didn't know what to do. I found this school, and I was, okay, well, I'm going to get computer classes because I want to get education. I have 2 kids, yada, yada. So my surprise, all the classmates that I had, they were people they served time in jail. All of the girls, all of the ladies that were there. I was the only one with a clean record. So when I hear them, their past and their faith, how much faith they have to become a better person. They have to fight to get back into the community. They have to fight to get back. To get back their kids, their children, their families, for their family to trust them again. It's so hard for them to be incorporated back in the community. So I get more involved in that, and then later I have the opportunity to volunteer for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, the Parole Division at the Educational Lab, because I'm an educator. So I get to know deep, understanding people with the second chance. Years later, I have another opportunity to work for a job placement coordinator for a big corporation. And I have people with needing jobs with the second chance. And I strongly believe I have, it really touched me because, I see their struggle, and I see how hard it is for them to be back in the community. I mean, it's people that have been in time for 20, 10, 15 years in a 10 by 10 room, and then I have to place them. But it's so hard for them to go out there, get a physical, get a drug test, and I mean, it's so hard for them to be there. So that's why I am always supporting and helping and advocating, and I'm very, very big supporter because I am really blessed that I am who I am today. But I'm happy to hear this type of conversations because this is what people need to know. This is what people need to hear, that we are people, that we care, and that we are here, here to help them. And, well,
Maria,
every time that I see them,
let me say,
better.
I'm gonna say something because it dovetails with what you say. But stay with us. I want you to stay on with us. First of all, I'm hugging you on the phone right now because I can feel your emotion on the phone, and I can feel your sincerity. And sometimes I hear callous people say things like, "Oh, you hear those things, Bishop. Oh, the community, they don't want to work or this or that." it's not really hard times. You know, this era of fake news, whatever you want to call it, at the end of the day, I have participated in many of these food drives in the last 12 months. And I did one not that long ago with Pastor Claude Cummins III.
Yeah.
The third. And I mean, there were cars lined up. I mean, some cars are lined up in some instances on some of these food drives for 3 or 4 hours. Let me tell you, people would not be lining up, Maria, right? Unless they're hurting. And they're already doubling up in their homes. And with inflation today, the government needs to realize, stop bailing out Wall Street and all that. Wall Street, you know, we're doing fine. I'm in the investment business. We're doing fine. The bottom line is we got to help the people because they're making the difficult choice of, can I afford meat or milk or rent or Pampers?
Yes.
I mean, they're making these life decisions because inflation is just eating up our people today. It's terrible. And I've got more to say about that in a second. Bishop, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me tell you, first, Maria, I'm hugging you as well.
Amen.
And let me tell you, we see people at our church. We feed over 2,000 people every week.
Oh my goodness!
Every Wednesday, we have a program called Hope Over Hunger, and it operates under our Compassion and Action.
What time is that, Bishop?
Department. It starts at like 10:30. It goes to like 4 o'clock.
And you feed them in a room with food, or is it like a long line
it's
of
a
people?
long line. So the cars line up.
I see cars
starting at 7 o'clock
Yeah.
a.m.
Amen.
And they wait for 3 or 4 hours at least to get to the food, and we feed it every week. And the lines have gotten longer and longer. And so the need is real. And there are people who would rather, present this as just a false narrative, but that's because that would excuse them for having an assignment, right?
Yes.
The reality is, once you know the need, now the onus is on you. Do I care or not? And what we see are people who are in need. And I would love to invite Maria and others to come by. You can volunteer at our church for Compassion in Action. Call us at 713-688-2900. Go on our app. And I think you can access our ministry on the app, the KCOH Church. But we love volunteers. And but when you come and see the need, participate in it, and we're building an army of compassion, Gilbert, and an army of hope across the city through our ministry, because we believe that people must take care of one another. And collectively, we must use our voices to say to policymakers, as you just said, listen, if we can increase the defense budget, can we increase programs that give people an uplift to empower them, because we're not going to be a whole society until the least of these are able to rise.
That's right. And listen, I see what's happening in Ukraine, and it breaks my heart. And
yes.
And I'm so glad we're stepping up and the world is stepping up. But I saw they're now asking to allocate something in the order of $40 billion or something like that. And I'm like, imagine what that would do in our inner cities.
Absolutely.
I mean, why don't we attack those issues with the same urgency?
Yes.
Because that's in our own backyard. That's the very foundation. Our studio audience is clapping. That's the very foundation of this country.
Yes.
And we just need to have that type of urgency.
Well, the greatest investment we could ever make is in our people, right? And we don't tend to understand that. We cut funding for education, but we raise funding for defense. And I thank God I live in America, right? We have a strong military. But there are other ways that we can make our country stronger. But if we don't invest in our people, we are not building a strong defense force, because the strongest defense are not people with tanks and guns. The strongest defense are educated minds who are able to lift themselves and lift their community. I did a piece for HCC last week at their big State of the College address, and that is this. We got to upskill in order to upscale. And if we upskill and upscale, then those people can uplift. And that's what it really takes.
I got to write that down. Hold on. Upskill to upscale to uplift.
To uplift.
Oh my goodness, that
Absolutely.
is so great. Maria, did you have anything else for the bishop here before I move on to another caller?
No. I'm just grateful that I have the opportunity, and thank you so much for continue helping and doing the best for our community.
Thank you,
Well,
Maria.
we thank you for calling. It's people like you. That's where it all starts. So we're both hugging you on the phone. Thank you, Maria. We're here with Gilbert
Bye.
Garcia. Bye-bye. KYOK, KWWJ. Keep walking with Jesus. And we are here, of course, every Monday from 11 to 11:45. And we've had lots of callers on the bishop here today, which is great. Bishop, I want to mention something else, because we talked about Ukraine for a second. What's very interesting to me is the actions of corporate America, where they're just pulling out, saying whatever assets we have there, we're just going to pull out. And it reminds me, I'd like to think I'm a young man, but you know what, Bishop, I'm getting older. It reminds me of South Africa. Remember, the world didn't necessarily rally like that. But remember, it took the boycotts.
Yes.
Remember, it took the boycotts.
Yes.
And it took us to say, we had to force corporate America to say, if you're going to be doing these things when you know they're enslaving people, they're killing people, they're doing all these horrible things to people just because of their color, we're not going to buy your products.
Right.
Thank God corporate America is being more proactive somehow. Am I being misled, or what do you think?
No, your finger's on the pulse. We know that when we do with South African apartheid, there was not a sense of urgency by corporate America, right? And we did have to now boycott them in the States,
right?
In order to say, do the right thing regarding apartheid. We're glad that they're doing the right thing now in the Ukraine crisis. But African countries still don't get that kind of response. And that's another show for another day to talk about the African countries and nations that are still under dictatorships and regimes and how America aids in that, because also we're supporting the adversaries. That's a bigger conversation for another day. Glad that we're doing the right thing now in Ukraine, but the reality is we need corporate America to use its muscle on other things, including like voter suppression. We said here that if corporate America had really been serious about fighting against voter suppression laws, I promise you, every elected official, needs funding. And often it's the people who have that kind of power economically that funds those campaigns. At the end of the day, we should all be trying to make sure, including corporate America, that the oppressed are no longer the oppressed. This issue of massive voter suppression that was based on the mistruth, the untruth of voter fraud, we know that that's a false claim. And yet all the new laws that have been enacted across the state, including Texas, were based on that lie. And corporate America could have called that out and stop that immediately, but now we've got suppression laws across the nation.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not the smartest, I'm not the sharpest pencil in the pencil box.
You're a pretty sharp pencil, though.
Well, I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, I guess I just say to myself, shouldn't we make it easier for people to vote? Isn't this the greatest democracy in the world? And you look at these other countries where there are people lined up all day long to vote.
Yes.
I mean, my goodness, shouldn't we make it easier to vote? When you get your, get your license, register to vote right then and there. Anything that relates to the government, register to vote right then and there. Shouldn't we make it easier?
The moment you turn 18, you should be sent a voter ID. I mean, because you are legal, right? You get the voter ID. That should be it. And then in a country where we thrive on convenience, like we used to have grocery stores that closed at 6 o'clock, then 9 o'clock, and now they're 24 hours. Now we got drive-ins.
And now they deliver.
And now they deliver. Because everything is about making things easier to participate in. But voting, we keep making it harder and harder and harder. And by the way, this whole deal of them saying, well, we did the laws to prevent voter fraud as if they knew it was coming. That's like saying, doctor, I know you haven't diagnosed me yet with a disease, but perform the surgery just in case.
Yeah, and I know I don't have the disease. But go ahead and take out my kidney. Take out my kidney because just in case I have it.
Just in case I might have it.
Well, I know we're out of time. You know what, Bishop? This has been a blast for me. Now there's an old Carol Burnett at the end of Carol Burnett show. They sing, "I'm so glad we had this time together." Well, guess what?
Yeah.
It's time to say so long.
It's time to say so long. Hey,
now, but not forever.
Not forever. Thank you for having me,
Well,
Gilbert.
no, this has been a blast. And by the way, so we're going to hear the end of this song. We're going to stay on him another 3 or 4 minutes on Facebook.
Okay.
This is a song by Chicago called "I've Been Searching So Long," and it talks about his self-discovery. But in reality, to me, I believe he found God, and you'll hear it in these words. So play it. Let's enjoy real quick, Houston. And again, you're with me, Gilbert Garcia, Talk Inspiration and Prayer, KWWJ, KYOK, every Monday, 11 to 11:45, with the incredible, very inspiring, and very involved in the community, Bishop Dixon. Dr. Bishop Dixon.
James.
James.
That's it.
But we can call him James.
That's it.
Something deep inside, part of me.
He says, there's a strange new light in my eyes, things I've never known, changing my life, changing me. I've been searching so long to find an answer. Now I know my life has meaning. Now I see myself as I am, feeling very free. Life is everything it's meant to be. I think he's really discovered God, or
Yes.
I mean, that's
It's
what I
a
really
spiritual-
feel here.
Yeah, it's a spiritual transformation, sounds like.
That's exactly right.
Mhm. I've heard that song for so long, and I never dissected it all the lyrics.
When you really
Yeah.
look at the words, and then he says here, when my days have come to an end, I will understand what I've left behind.
Wow.
Part of me.
Part of me. Wow.
I really think it has great religious significance.
I love it.
Now I see myself as I am, feeling very free. Life is everything it's meant to be.
Life is everything. It's meant to be. When my days have come to an end, I will understand
The words are fantastic.
Yeah.
what I left behind.
And then he goes, I've been searching so long to find an answer. Now I know my life has meaning. He's found it. I think he found it in
Yeah.
God.
To find an answer. I know my life has meaning.
Meaning.
And then here comes the crescendo, because it's almost like the sun's parting, and the light is shining, and now he's there, and I can see him on his knees looking at God saying, I've now got it.
Yes.
I found the
I found
answer,
the answer.
and it's you. All right, I think we now are off the radio, but we're now going to hear the rest of this song. It's only another 30 seconds or so, Bishop. We're now still on Facebook, Spotify, and everything else. And for all of you who've been listening, we've got the most incredible guest today. A lot of you know him. If you don't know him, a lot of you have read about him, seen him. He's been published on books. He's served on many different boards in the community, whether it's Metro, whether it's Sports Authority. He's fished everywhere. And yet, he has never lost his grounding. And really, he's the warrior and the fighter and the inspiration for the people. That's the beautiful thing. To use these positions of influence and power for the people, for the everyday man and woman but the grace of God, they're homeless or not, all it takes right now in today's times, you go ahead and fade out there, Mr. Producer, is losing your job right now.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you could be, with prices today, it's taking two people to work to live a lifestyle that their parents lived. These are interesting times.
Sure.
And so I really thank you, Bishop, for all that you do. And let me ask you this. Now, this is now sort of inside religious talk, because I don't get a chance to do this. So when you're there and you're like, so you just did an incredible sermon Sunday. How do you prepare for the next sermon the next Sunday? Do you sit around and reflect and say, what am I going to talk about? Do you wait, and does it just come to you? How do you get that word of God coming out in you? You understand my question?
Sure. Yes. Well, let me say this. First of all, being called to the pulpit ministry is an expression of God's immense mercy, right? Nobody qualifies for that assignment. You can't be good enough, live good enough, be smart enough to do it. It's not something that you can put an application in and say, hey, read my resume, my bio, I deserve to do this. Every other job you get, it's your personal resume, it's your bio, your experience, right? I went to school, I did this, and God will say, really? How do you get to speak for me based on your qualifications? It's mercy. So it's very important for the minister to remain humble and in a place of complete dependence on God. The hardest thing to prepare is not the sermon itself, it's a sermonizer. It's not the preachment, it's the preacher who has to stay prepared. And so you learn early in your life, like I did as a minister, I've been doing since I was 18 years old as a pastor, that self-preparation comes before sermon preparation. And the more you stay in the presence of God, the more you develop an ear and a sensitivity to hear what the Spirit of God is saying. And so it's the Spirit of God being able to speak to you while you're driving your car, or while you're eating breakfast, or while you know, observing a movie, or sitting still. Quiet time with God is priceless. And by the way, that's the hardest thing for me to guard. I have to guard my time and my schedule in such a way that I create time where there's no interruptions, no TV, no radio, where I can really hear God. And that's I mean, I'm broad stroking that, but you know, I can be on an airplane. Like, for example, let me give you that.
Please.
Example. So I fly a lot, right? And you know, we all fly, but I don't fly in the cockpit, right? All of us have a window, but our window gives us a side view of what's out there in the sky. But only the pilot sees what's in the front view. I thank God that I don't see what he sees. I'm flying by faith. He's flying by sight. He sees it. And that's how God is with us. He often doesn't allow us to see the real storms ahead. By the time we see it, it's passing by.
Very interesting.
I mean, so that's a sermon by itself.
Well, you know, I wonder if we in our lives could see forward. I don't know. Maybe it would scare the dickens out of us.
Fly.
I mean,
we wouldn't fly, right?
Yeah,
we wouldn't fly.
I think that's probably right.
Yeah.
So maybe, I mean, it goes back. You just got to have faith.
Yeah, you got to have faith. And but you know, for the call preacher, God is speaking to us all the time, right? Like Jesus. Okay, imagine walking around with Jesus. Man, I said, man, can you imagine you just walking down through a town with Jesus? Anything he sees, he can give you a message out of it, right? I mean, and he'll say, consider the flowers and the lilies, how they grow. Well, you're looking at the fields. And he can turn it into a theological education using practical illustrations that have life-relevant application. And that's what God gives the called preacher the gift to do. You're walking down the street, he's with you, Holy Spirit, and he says, hey, see that man who's homeless? All right, that man who's homeless has a soul just as valuable as yours.
That's right.
You know, and then he gives you a message for the man, but then ultimately the man gives you a message.
You know, it reminds me of that cartoon. Remember, I have kids, and 3 of them, well, 2 are gone, 1 will be gone to LSU, and then my princess, who still loves me, thank the Lord, she's the only daughter, is going to be in high school next year, second year high school. But I remember when they were little, and what always struck me was that show, Little Drummer Boy. Because here are the kings with these jewels and things that they present to Jesus, and there's a little drummer boy, and he's saying, I have nothing to give. And one of the kings reaches down to him and says, you know, you have the most to give. And he played his song. And so, I don't know, that always stuck with me,
That's
Bishop.
a powerful.
It really is, isn't it, when you really think about it? Well, let me ask you this, Bishop. We thank you for everything that you do. We thank you for being here. You know, next week I'm going to have a guest from SCIU, one of the heads of SCIU. And they're up, I guess, for contract negotiations. It's not a political statement here, for the janitorial services. And I said, I want you on my show. Are you ready for this? Some of these janitors who've been working all this time, some of them have no health care benefits, making $10 an hour. $10 an hour.
They're working poor.
And they're working hard, and they're doing the jobs that are the hardest jobs. They're late at night. And I said, I want you on my show because I want people to know about that. These are hard-working people, Bishop.
That's a relevant issue.
Yep. And so we're going to be doing that next week. So I'm going to give Bishop the last word, and I'm just going to say to everyone out there in the cyber world, Gilbert Garcia, talk inspiration and prayer. I'm so grateful that you're listening. We have, again, the very well-respected, extraordinary man, written many books, has been preaching, saving lives, helping lives, all these things. The Bishop Dixon, Dr. Dixon. Bishop, you have the last word.
Well, first, thank you for being a voice, right, for the voiceless, and using this show as an opportunity, a vehicle to impact and influence and inspire. That's very powerful and profound. Honored to be here. I want to say to your guest who's listening today, listen, find a cause. Find a cause and commit to the cause because you care. Causes are, you can find them. Human trafficking, that's a cause. I work with that cause. Racism, oppression, that's a cause. education, that's a cause. Helping the least, the last, and the lost. Feeding the hungry, doing something that empowers somebody other than yourself. Because anyone who has power, power is never for yourself. When people say to me, man, I get tired of people asking me to do this, this, and this. I said, nobody asks anything from an empty tree. If you don't have fruit on your limbs, nobody's trying to get to your tree. And so the more fruit you bear, the more people are going to come to you. You have fruit-bearing potential, which means you ought to be helping others to have a quality of life. Find a cause, commit to it, make a difference, and that's what makes your life significant.
Amen. And, I had Rachel Fisher, who's a nurse, and she had been human trafficked her life for many years, and it was faith that got her out. And what struck me so much about her was how intelligent she was, how together she was, and how she's used all of those experiences for good. Because, she could have been angry.
Yes.
She didn't have any anger in her, Bishop. She was all about how can I help others escape that life, and how can I help police to be more sensitive to what it's all about, and how can I be a voice? Oh, it just struck me.
It's a beautiful story. It's powerful, isn't it?
Oh,
and
amazing.
It's compelling. Yeah, well, our organization is called NTZ Inc., No Trafficking Zone. You can go on our website for that. Go to work with kids, go to our website, Good Gang USA. You want to work with Compassion and Action, go to thecommunityfaith.org. Anywhere you want to find a cause. And it doesn't have to be ours, but find something in your community where you can serve, because as Dr. King said, those who serve are the greatest. And that's what Jesus said, of course, first.
Amen. So, Houston, you heard it here. This is Gilbert Garcia, Talk Inspiration and Prayer. Please join me next week and every week. We have all the old shows online. Feel free to go peruse them. And I want to say thank you to Bishop Dixon for taking the time out of his busy schedule. And let me just say to all of you out there, register to vote. Make your voice heard. As the bishop says, get involved. And I'll see you next time. This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia. Join me for my new radio show, A Tip from Gilbert, Talk Inspiration and Prayer, every Monday from 11 to 11:45 a.m. on KWWJ 1360 AM, 96.9 FM, or KYOK 1140 AM. Call me 832-570-8075. See you then.